Well, hello there, friends. How are you doing today? I have a question again. What would happen if I took this paint, this red paint, and I took this brush, and I took this red paint, and I painted the bottom of my shoes, and then with this wet red paint, I walked on the floor of your house with this wet paint on my shoes? What would happen? Yes, you're right. It would make red tracks all over your floor. Whether it would be your carpet or your wood floor, it would make tracks. It would be a real mess. So, what would I do then? Well, I have a choice. I could either clean it up right away or sort of leave and run away. Well, and if you weren't there and I didn't want you to know that I had been there and made a mess, I would try to clean it up or I would try to cover my tracks. Do you think I could do that? Do you think I could cover up the red paint that I had left on your floor because of this red paint on my shoes? I think I would have to work really hard at covering these painted tracks, and it would almost might be impossible to clean it up pretty quick. I'd have to work hard at covering my tracks. Did you ever hear someone say that they needed to cover their tracks? Well, what does that mean? Well, literally, it means to cover somebody's footprints so that I'm not being followed or to hide something that I have done. So if I would walk on your floor with red paint on my shoes, I would need to cover my tracks so no one knows that I did the wrong thing. So if someone's covering their tracks, they're usually trying to hide or destroy evidence of something that they have done wrong or someplace they have been where they shouldn't have been. Like, I should never have walked on your floor with red paint on my shoes. But if I was able to clean this paint off of your floor, if I successfully covered my tracks, it would be okay, right? No one saw me do the wrong thing, so it's all good, right? Oh, or did somebody see me? Who might have seen me? If you didn't, who saw me? You're right. God saw me. Can we hide anything from God? Not really. He knows us and he sees us. In fact, in Jeremiah 16:17 in the Old Testament, God says this, "My eyes see everything these people do. What they do is not hidden from me, for I will always see their sin." You know, even if I wear this black hat and these black sunglasses, some people might not recognize me, but God knows exactly who I am. So, what should I be doing since God can see me and everything that I do? Well, I should probably try to do the right thing, right? Yeah. So the first thing that I should do would not be to walk on your floor with painted shoes, right? That's wrong. I just shouldn't do it. But when we do something wrong or against God's law, what's it called? A mistake, a bad thing, or a sin. Yep, it's called a sin. Do you remember some of the things that God tells us about sin in the Bible? Well, the first thing that is said is that everyone sins. Romans 3:23 says, "Everyone has sinned, and no one measures up to God's glory or to God's perfection." So we know that we sin. So what should we do if and when we sin? Should we try to hide it? Pretend it never happened? That's not really going to work because you know what? In Numbers 32:23 it says, "You may be sure that your sin will be discovered. It will be brought out into the open." Another version of that verse says, "Be sure your sin will find you out." So I probably shouldn't try to cover my tracks because somebody's going to find out anyhow. Even if I worked really hard at scrubbing the red paint off your floor, there still might be some tracks and people would say, "Who did this and why?" So I should try to remedy the situation, right? But how? Well, how about admitting it and confessing it? Proverbs 28:13 says, "Anyone who hides their sins doesn't succeed, but anyone who admits their sins and gives them up finds mercy." So, if I came into your house and I did this wrong thing by painting my shoes red and by walking on your floors and I couldn't clean it, I should say, "Hey, it was me. I'm sorry. I should not have done that. Would you forgive me?" Well, I hope you would forgive me, and then I need to ask God for forgiveness, and what happens then? Well, God does forgive us for the sins we do. 1 John 1:19 says, God is faithful and fair. If we confess our sins, he will forgive our sins. He will forgive every wrong thing we have done, and he will make us pure. Wow, I am so grateful for God's forgiveness. And I will try to do what is right. But if I do something wrong, I will not try to cover my tracks. I will need to make sure that I admit and confess that I do wrong things. I don't want to, but I try not to. But when I do, I need to own up to that. And I hope that's something you commit to as well. To being the best person you can be, to follow God's ways, to do the right thing, not intentionally do the wrong thing. But when we do, to go to God and go to people we may have wronged and say, would you forgive me? I have done something wrong. Then we can experience God's forgiveness and we can continue on in our life knowing that we are loved so much by God and we don't want to continue to do what is wrong. Wow, I'm not going to walk on your floor with my painted red shoes. I'm going to put this stuff away and not even think about it again. I promise you that. But thanks for listening and for forgiving me if and when I do something wrong. I really do appreciate it. I wish for you a day that's filled with forgiveness, a day that is filled with good things, and most of all, a day that is filled with joy and peace.